Hello and welcome back to another video. Sex Education, the popular Netflix series that I've only actually watched 2 episodes of, but I keep on talking about. Fortunately, for this episode, I don't actually need to have watched anything, because what I'm discussing is that there is nothing to discuss. In terms of the asexuality, at least. And the show is popular for a reason. I've heard that it's very good in terms of portraying sexuality and the troubles that young people go through in coming to terms with their sexual attraction and their orientation. However, there is one glaring omission in the show, and that is conversations about asexuality. There are 2 major points in the show which had ace people's hopes up. The first being the main character Otis. In the first season of Sex Education, I will give the disclaimer that I haven't watched it myself, a main character arc of his is that he doesn't want to masturbate. And being the son of a sex therapist, he feels like that is unnatural. He feels like he should masturbate, and he's very embarrassed and self-conscious about that fact. Now, if this seems like a familiar experience to you, if you've spent any time in the ace community, it's because that's how a lot of ace people sometimes feel. Of course, ace people can and do masturbate if they want to, because an ace person can easily have as strong a libido as anyone else. But for a lot of ace people, because there's no sexual attraction there, they also don't have as strong a desire to masturbate, and that creates some social stigma. So going into Sex Education, there was a non-zero possibility that the main character could have been asexual. And obviously this would have been fantastic. There's never been a main character in a popular TV show who has identified as asexual. And this would be a major step in bringing more recognition, more mainstream recognition of asexuality to the wider public. But of course that opportunity was completely squandered. By the end of the first season, these problems have been solved and he's perfectly comfortable masturbating and having sex. Now, of course, this is an important story to tell in and of itself, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't have been told, but you can't deny that there was a fantastic opportunity to portray asexuality in a positive light. So, season 1 came and passed with no ace representation. But there was a glimmer of hope in season 2. For a single episode, there was a canonically ace character in the show. Granted, this was only 1 episode, and the character, Florence, didn't really appear much in the larger season. This side arc of her discovering her asexuality and coming to terms with that was in a very neat package that fit into about 1/3 of the episode's runtime, if that. It was good representation, and when I made the video about it shortly after it came out, I was positive of it, because it didn't really have any flaws. The only really qualm I had with it at the time was that there could have been more of it. But that's always going to be something that's brought up. And I thought that this, bringing asexuality into it, was a good first step for ace representation. Then in later seasons, they may be able to explore more of that character, maybe them finding out about more specific about their romantic orientation. Or maybe another ace or arrow character being introduced to show the broader spectrum of the ace and arrow communities. So I think a lot of ace people, myself included, were looking forward to the 3rd season of Sex Education and hoping they would continue on the line of good representation and expand the portfolio of ace and arrow people who feel represented in the media, which at the moment is incredibly sparse, and you're very unlikely to run across ace and arrow characters accidentally. But the 3rd season of Sex Education came and went with nary a mention of any ace characters. The asexual character of Florence, who is in the second season, had mysteriously vanished. They weren't present at all. Does this surprise me? No. Does this disappoint me? Of course. In a show that so openly talks about sexuality and coming to terms with your orientation and exploring queer stories, there didn't seem to be a place for asexuality. At least that seems to be the viewpoint of the people making the show. And I think that's a reflection of the broader attitudes towards representing ace people in the media. It's almost a mirror of how gay people were represented not so long ago. In a very tokenistic way, as if to fill out some quota of representation. Yay! I have represented the ace person. Now let's move on to the next person on the list. If this is the way that you get representation, then it's not going to be good representation. I know that I was positive of the ace representation that was in season 2 of Sex Education, but in hindsight, the fact that this character is completely gone, their story probably is never going to be explored in any more depth. It looks incredibly tokenistic. When that season released, they will have got a big portion of the ace community excited about Sex Education. They will have brought in a lot of viewers who may not have been interested in this show otherwise. But bringing that character in again doesn't necessarily have that same media attention. So I can understand in a completely cynical way how it may not feel worth it to then continue that character's story. And that's really disappointing. Earlier today I watched The Eternals, which is the newest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this was the first film which had a main character in it who was gay. If you compare the representation of gay people to ace people, gay people is miles ahead. It's not necessarily the best landscape, but gay people are being represented a lot more, and people understand what being gay is a lot better than being ace. So maybe it was naive of me to hope that an ace person would be represented in a meaningful way in a mainstream series when it took 2 decades to get a gay superhero in the MCU. And even then, this superhero was part of a quite significant cast being introduced in one film, which is of lesser known superheroes. Ace representation is lacking. I don't think that would be a surprise to anyone. And I guess with this video, I just wanted to express my frustration with the state of ace representation and the fact that at the moment it is tokenistic. The only thing we can really do about that is make our voices heard, make our frustration heard, and hopefully at some point in the future it won't be so far-fetched to get a main character who is ace, to have a story about an ace person which isn't just a neatly packaged coming out story. I hope that that'll happen sooner than I expect, but I don't really expect it to happen anytime soon. Let me know if there are any good pieces of ace representation that you're aware of. I could use a bit of positivity on that front. Have you watched Sex Education? How did you feel about its representation of ace people in, I guess, the second season with Florence, and then the lack of it in the third season? But that is all I had to say today. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I post videos every Saturday, so if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. That is all I had to say today. Have a wonderful day, and I shall see you next time. Have you watched Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I post videos every Saturday, and I've forgotten my outro.